Hello there. So I need to make a bit of an apology before I start this video. I've recently changed over software. I had a problem with the old software that I used, so I'm now using PowerDirector 17. Basically what that means in my terms is that I'm using a piece of software. It's very powerful, but because I'm new to it, I don't know how to use it, so I'm using basic features. Obviously also I've got ideas in my head. Now what's happened is issue 2, I've filmed it, and then there's a stage, you'll see it as you watch the video, but because I'm using putty and I need to allow overnight for that putty to dry, I couldn't do anything for a night, so I decided to go and film issues 3, 4, 5 and 6, which have already been made and you will see in a future episode. However, while I was doing 3, 4, 5 and 6, I've actually come up with new ideas to add to the video. One of those ideas is to add titles and pictures from the magazine. Let me grab a magazine. I had one around. So yeah, as you get the magazine obviously, and you get the lovely build instructions, but you also get some of these lovely articles. Now I've decided from issue 6 that I'm going to include these at a very basic level in the video, and then once I make the video I save it and I use that as a template. Because I've made and saved issue 6 before I finished doing issue 2, I've had to use that template for issue 2. So what's going to happen is you're going to get slight additional content in this video. You're then not going to get that content in issue 3, 4 and 5, but you will then get it from 6 onwards. If you enjoy the content so much you'd like to see it all the time, I will be more than happy to make an additional video that just has the additional content from issues 3, 4 and 5, but it will, I will include it from issue 6 onwards. I enjoyed adding it and I think it enhanced the video, but basically what I'm saying is, in my opinion, this episode has increased in the content. Then you'll kind of see it go backwards and then you'll see it go forwards again. So I do apologise, and I hope it's not spoiled your enjoyment of this video. So welcome to issue 2. Now there is only one piece this week. I mean, it's a magnificent piece, don't get me wrong. We've got basically one piece to look at, and we have 3 jobs. The first job is to make sure it's straight. Obviously it comes in this packet. When I bought this, obviously I bought this off eBay, and it's an old part work. The guy did open it. He did say in the eBay listing that the reason he opened it was large parts he opened because he didn't want them to get damaged. So where something's attached to a magazine like this, he's took it off separately. The vast majority of the parts are flat. So there's only actually 3 magazines that he opened, but I did have a little look at this, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. When you think this is 10 years old, the manufacturing processes weren't as superior as they are now. So for example, you've got all these burrs of long hair, so that's something that we have to deal with. In 2018 we would be saying that's absolutely terrible, to have all of these flash marks and that, but this came out in 2008 where that would be quite normal. Now this is made of, they've called it Zamac, which is zinc, aluminium, magnesium and copper alloy. So I got no idea what that combination is. Copper, I guess, is going to add a little bit of strength. Aluminium is lighter. Magnesium, isn't that a flammable material? I don't know. And zinc is a metal. That's all I can really tell you. So the first job that we need to do is we need to get a steel ruler, and we want to make sure this is absolutely flat. I'm actually going to do this all in one video, and I'm going to pop the instructions up there as needed. And what we're going to do, you can be as precise as you want here. I don't know if you can see that. There is a slight gap there. I'm not complaining, that might have been in transit or may just not have been made properly. And what we need to do is just manipulate this a little bit. Oh my god, can you believe I got that in one? Yeah, no, I'm happy with that. So we'll check the other side. Wow. Okay, that is very minimal effort needed for that. This should be flat. Lovely. Obviously where there's any detail, that's going to help maintain its flatness. And that, oh yeah, I'm happy. Oh, I've just knocked my R2-D2. I really should turn him off when I'm not doing a Star Wars related build. So let's just give that a little bend there. I mean, obviously we won't know how precise this is until we actually come to it, but I would say that's flat. So the next stage that we're going to do is we want to remove all of these burrs. Now I did do one side before we did the video, and I think we did this side. The reason I did one beforehand was purely just to see, would ordinary sandpaper work or would I need a file? And to be perfectly honest with you, your absolute best bet is a file. So it doesn't matter what shape you use, as long as the one side is flat. And all we've done is we've just rubbing along all the outside edges, and then just gently, remember when I've said before with the burrs, don't rub. If you've got any sharp bits, you're going to cut your finger. You're feeling. So we're just going to keep rubbing like so until we've got rid of those horrible edges. These outside bits aren't really too bad. That's why I struggled at first, but yeah, that's a bit rough. Now I have said before to only use these in one direction, but I'm just doing a quick rub over. Now, one thing I'm concerned about, and I don't know whether to be or not, I don't know if you can see there, you've got the main bit there, and then you've got a lip there, and then you've got what could be mistaken for flash all around the edge, but that flash is quite even and quite neat, so I think it's meant to be there. So it might well be that at some point in the future, follow this along, we may have to take all of that down, but I'm not going to take it down now because I'm really not sure if it's meant to be there. So what I will do, I will leave it there, but I'll be ready for that to be too much. So we may need to take it down in the future. So the only bit left then is these little burrs here. If this was a plastic miniature, this would be called flash. I assume it's still called flash, and it's just basically where the casting process, it's I'm not sure if it's applicable for metal, but the way it happens in plastics is you get a mold, and it's a two-part mold, and you've got like a shape in there and you've got a shape in there, and then the two pieces are put together, and then the plastic or metal or whatever is squirted into the top, yeah, like that, and then at the end when it's all cool, the two sides are removed, and you've got a model or whatever, you've got the shape. Unfortunately, if these two bits don't quite close properly, you've got a little bit is going to seep out in the middle, and that's where you get this flash from. You see there, so it's just obviously the mould has gone in this way, and then the metal has been poured in somewhere, probably, I don't know, can't really see, so I don't know. And then you can always tell when they've been done on a mould. You tend to have these little circles here, and what these circles are is to get it out of obviously to get it out of the first half, you just remove the half of the mould, but to get it out, rather than trying to pick it out, you'll have like all these studs, and it will push it out, and that's the point where it's been pushed out. There's been some force, so it's actually made a small depression. It's absolutely fine. They tend to have these on the parts that you won't see, so this is, you know, it's going to be this way up, so you're not going to see the marks on the underside. So that is basically a big history lesson, or a big lesson on flash there, performed by someone that doesn't know an awful lot. At the end of the day, you don't need to know a lot about flash. All you need to know really is that you don't want it, so you just remove it, and it's as simple as that. Now be careful, because you're going to end up with a load of iron filings, so if you've got any open sores and you put your hand, you know, obviously that would get into the wound. If you've got any small children about, you know, this is an alloy of zinc, aluminium, magnesium and copper. If you breathe any of that in, I don't know if that's going to cause any problems. I really don't know the effect of these metals. Now obviously the attitude in the old days is, I don't know what it's going to do, so don't worry about it. I tend to work the opposite, which is, I don't know what it's going to do to me, so I'm going to take extra precautions. Having said that, I smoke, so that's makes me a bit of a hypocrite there, doesn't it? Right, so I'm happy with that. There's a little bit there I'm not happy with. You may want to approach this from the other side. Yeah, okay. So, without knowing exactly what each of these bits are going to be for, there's some flash there. Yeah, without actually knowing what each section is, I mean, obviously I know what the whole section is. This is a footplate, but obviously when I say I don't know what it means, I don't know what that bit is, I don't know what that bit there, I don't know what that bit there is for, I don't know what's going there. So I've basically got rid of the rough edges, so at least it's safer to work with. I would suggest, unless you actually know what piece is going to go where, you know, don't take too much down, because you can always take more off later. So yeah, that's that then. So we'll move on to the next section, which is a little bit more complicated. So what we need to do, I don't know how this has come about, but here at the front you can see you've got two holes. Can you see there's two holes? Basically there's a hole there, and it goes all the way through, but there's also some grooves. Now I don't know how those grooves come about, and I don't know why they're there, but we need to fill them. Why we need to fill them, I have absolutely no idea. So what we're going to use, I'm going to use a two-part epoxy. This is a modelling clay. This is often called green stuff. This is also known as milliput. I think milliput do some. You don't have to buy a two-part epoxy, but I like working with the two-part. Now I will explain in a moment why this is called green stuff. Now, when you get this, because it comes in like a 2-colour bar, this piece in the middle would have already begun to set and mix. So I've actually cut off way too much here. So I'm going to cut this off. This middle bit there is a little, depends how much of a purist you are, but there's a little hard bit running down the middle there, and doesn't matter what you do, that will not mix. So that wants to go in the bin. So that leaves you with this. Now what happens when you mix yellow and blue? Simple answer is it turns green. So that's why this is called green. I don't know why I took so much off. I'm going to need probably that much in total, and I've taken all that off. How that's daft, isn't it? So if you struggle with this, as you put your body heat through it, it tends to be a little bit easier to work with, but it actually works quite well wet. Obviously if you keep it wet, it won't dry. So just have some water around. Do you know, I had some and I can't find it now. I had a little bottle of it. I will find you. Right, what's this one? Right. So there we go. We just keep going, and we want to just keep mixing this together until you see how there's lines through it. So that's not mixed well enough, and all we do is we just pull it, fold it, pull it, fold it as many times as you want, and then after a while it becomes a little bit more pliable, like a little bit more consistency of plasticine or hard plasticine. There you go, that's getting there now. So there we go, that's getting there. Okay, we're nearly there now. Almost there. That's actually more of a dirty green. I think there's a bit of muck in there, and as it dries it gets quite sticky. You might want to just lightly wet your fingers. So there we go, I'm happy with that. So now just twist it into a sausage, and then what we can do is we can just cut off as bits that we need. So what we need to do is we need to fill those grooves in. So we really squeeze that into there. Make sure we get that well in there. Can you see how little I actually need? That little tiny bit that I've taken off is actually going to do both sides. So there we go. But what we'll need to do is can you see this? Yes. So what we're going to need to do is re-establish that hole in a moment. Doesn't matter if you don't, well, you've got to fill the hole, but you don't need to get it absolutely level at this point. There we go. You can use liquid putties, but the reason I like this one so much is it doesn't shrink. A lot of the liquid putties, even the Vallejo, which I really like, they tend to shrink, but these hard epoxies, they don't shrink quite so much. Citadel do a nice liquid green stuff, but that has a tendency to shrink as well. I think it's because of the water content. So obviously as the water escapes, it's I hope we need to fill this in, you know. I know we need to fill those grooves in. Right, so I think that's the first one done. So if in doubt, pile too much on. Once it's dry, we can always take it down. So once we have got that, we now need to poke a little hole in it, and the hole is going to be, can't find the hole, cannot find the hole. Perhaps should have put something through the hole before we started. There it is. Perfect. I've actually got a rod that will come in very handy for that, but I've gone and put it away. So if anyone's been watching my Hermione series, I'm trying to think when this is going to be released in relation to the Hermione. I think we've actually been starting some work on some cannons, and it actually comes with an 8mm rod, which I think would be perfect for this. So what I've done there is, I don't know if you can see it there, there's a little groove in there and there's a groove in there, but there's also a hole. We want the hole, but we don't want the grooves. So it's actually done quite scruffy there, but what we'll do is when that's dry, we'll fill it. So I'm going to crack on and get this next bit done, and that will be me done for filming for today, because unlike some of the glues, you really cannot do anything with this until it's fully hardened, which I would always allow overnight. With some of the glues, you have like a working time and a curing time. So like the two-part epoxy that I use for the R2-D2, for example, that has a curing time of about well, overnight really, but I can probably work with it within about an hour. So what I can do is I can chuck the glue in, chuck the epoxy in, and then an hour later I'm actually doing work on it. But this, you can't do anything until it's fully cured, and obviously if you're going to put a thicker bit in, that will take slightly longer to cure. So I'm just assuming we need to fill this hole in, because I'm probably buggered now if we don't. So never mind. Right, so this second hole should be a bit easier to find, because it should run through where this was. There we go. I'm not worried about the getting the hole exact. I've just created a hole, and then when this dries, we can file that hole through properly. So I'm really sorry I can't get a good focus on this. Let me turn this light off. Let's get a white piece of paper, see if that helps. There we go. That's helps an awful lot. So we filled those holes, and then all I can do now is wait for it to dry. So that's how much too much I made, look. So in fact the amount that I threw away would probably have done the job. Not to worry. So what I will do then is I will let that dry overnight, and then what we'll do is we'll tidy it up tomorrow. Well, it'll be tomorrow for me, but it'll be in about 2 seconds for you. So I have let that putty dry overnight, and it's rock solid. Trying to get really good focus on this, but it's quite difficult. There we go. So you can see all the green putty over. Obviously the putty will be dependent on whatever you use. I've had a little test just to make sure it is dry, and it is. And the rest of it is now really going to be more time consuming than it is difficult. What we're going to do is we're going to get a file, and we're just going to gently file that using either sandpaper or file. Either will do the job. and we're just going to file that flat. So you can see there that that groove has been, well, you can't really see it too well, but that groove has been filled in, and we just want to file using whatever we've got, whatever we feel is best for the job, and we just want to just keep filing. Don't know what the best way to be, and just file. So I'm going to speed this up, just this bit, then we'll show you what I've done, and then we can do a comparison, and then I can get on with the rest. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Well, happy-ish. Let me see if I can get a really good close focus. There's a little bit of a gap, so you can always go back in and do that. That side's been flattened. Trying to get a good angle. So what we want to do then is just get our file again, our round file, and we can just go in and make sure those holes are round. At this stage I'm unsure about these holes because I don't know what's going through that hole, and what worries me is that I don't know if we'll be able to get to that to adjust it later on, and I think what I might do, actually there's a little gap there, so I might just pop in another piece of putty and apply the same, but I'll do that off camera. So what I'm going to do now then to finish this off, or finish this part off, is I'm just going to do the other side. So again, it's just file, more time consuming than it is skillful, and sometimes you might find you want to scrape parts away. That's quite a large lump there, so we'll see if I can cut the majority of that away with a knife. Difficult. Be very careful. I wouldn't do this if you are young. You might want to consider adult supervision, but I'm not going to cut all the way down. There we go, I've just cut the majority away. And that's obviously saved me minutes possibly of filing. So that's cut away, trimmed. Because I'm cutting across the hole, I'm not going to expose that hole. I'm just going to cut across on there, and then we might get away with, there we go. Try not to cut into the piece of metal because it's fairly soft, so we run the risk actually of cutting. So right, I shall get on with that then. Okay, I'm actually really happy with that. Let's see if I can get a better focus. There we go. So you can see that the putty is pretty much blended in. That could do with just a little bit more. So I'll get on and do that. It's only a little tiny bit to do. I might just pop in a little bit of liquid putty on that. Vallejo do a nice liquid one. But yeah, I think that's fine. That's covered that groove up. So yeah, that is issue 2 complete. Now what they do make a suggestion to do is to pop the chassis on. I will pop the chassis on, but I don't think it does anything at this stage. This is really just to get a sense of the size of it. So for all of you technical builders out there, I suppose you would be saying this is a bit of a disappointing build. When you think how much effort went into this, and all the technical effort and all the new skills that we've learned, that was a really great issue. Looking ahead at some of the issues, they won't all be an awful lot of work, but this one, there was all it was cleaning up and making sure it's straight. In fact, it may not still be perfectly straight, but it's okay. And then fixing what I can only really amount to a mistake. This groove in there, you know, if it wasn't supposed to be there, then why is it there? But you know, fair enough. The amount of work we've put into the 2 issues, obviously an awful lot of work in this one and not so much in this one. If you average it out over the 2 issues, it's still a fair amount of work. And quite often these part works, they come in packs of 4. So I like to judge part works in 2 ways. One, firstly, is what you get in the pack of 4, and secondly, compare the past issue as well. So don't just judge this on its own, judge this and the previous issue. So next week, issue 3, we'll be looking for a reasonable amount of work, and then the average between 3 and 2, you know, and so on and so forth. So, you know, call it a slow issue if you want. I wouldn't say it's a slow issue because there's plenty to do, but there's possibly quite a lot of unnecessary work. But you know, this is an old part work. I'm judging 2008 based on the standards of 2018. I think there's a fair argument there to say, Penny, that's really not fair. So I'll end this here. I've enjoyed this issue. I've enjoyed it mainly because, you know, we've gone from this, which is really nice, to this, which is really, really nice. Okay guys, so I will catch you next week.